I request all the dignitaries, our keynote speakers, to kindly proceed towards the stage for the lamp lighting. Dr. N.N. Sharma, President NUJ, Professor Bharat Sayya, Architect Yatin Pandya, Professor Thomas Siegel Hunter, and Dr. Anjali Krishan Sharma, our keynote speakers. Professor Dr. Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, sir, Dean, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture. Conference Chair, Professor Dr. Madhura Yadav Ma'am, Director, School of Architecture and Design, Dean, Student Welfare. Conference Chair, Professor Dr. Kalyan Kumar Mukherjee, sir, Director, Manipal School of Architecture and Planning, Mahe, Manipal. Architect Saurabh Sharma, Head Architecture. Professor Pratibha Mishra, Head Department of Design and Interior Design. Thank you so much. Requesting all the dignitaries to kindly take their respective seats. In order to welcome all the dignitaries present here, I request Professor Dr. Kuldeep Sir, Dean, Foster, to kindly welcome the President NUJ, Dr. N.N. Sharma. Requesting Professor Dr. Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, sir, Dean, Foster, to kindly welcome our President, Dr. N.N. Sharma, sir. Requesting Professor Dr. Madhura Yadav, ma'am, Director, SCBE, to kindly welcome Professor Bharat Sayya, sir. Architect Saurabh Sharma, sir, Head Architecture, to kindly welcome Architect Yatin Pandya, sir. Professor Pratibha Mishra, ma'am, Head Department of Fashion Design and Interior Design, to kindly welcome Dr. Anjali Krishan Sharma. Architect Nehal Saxena ma'am, Associate Professor SAND, to kindly welcome Professor Dr. Kalyan Kumar Mukherjee, sir. Thank you all. I now invite Conference Chair, Professor Dr. Madhura Yadav ma'am, Director, SANG, Team Student Welfare, to kindly deliver the welcome address. Namaskar, and a very warm welcome to everyone present today. Honorable President Dr. N. Sharma, distinguished speakers, keynote speakers, Professor Dahiya, Professor Pandya, Professor Thomas is online, Professor Anjali, Conference Chair, Professor Mukherjee, our Dean, Professor Sangwan, all the session chairs, all the delegates, faculty colleagues, students. It's my privilege to welcome you all to the first collaborating international conference on socially conscious built environment. Why I'm calling it first? Because 2 years back, all the leaders of architecture institution met in Bangalore in 2023, I think. So that time we decided to collaborate with each other for conferences, for research, and for studio exchange also. So this is the first collaborative conference between all the architectural institutions of Manipal Group, that is Mahe, Manipal University Jaipur, and Mahe Dubai. So before we speak of policies, plans, and projects, I want to begin with a few simple stories that remind us what architecture really means in people's lives and which is related to our theme of the conference. I would like to start the story of the village that builds its own schools in West Africa. There was a small village in Gando in Burkina Faso, West Africa. Children once studied under a tree in unbearable heat. Education was a distant dream until young architecture student Francis Kere, who was born in that village, decided to change that. There were no machines, no big contractors, which is required for the constructions. There was only earth, hands, and hope. Together, the villagers built a school with handmade mud bricks and natural ventilation. When the first class began, a little girl whispered, for the first time, we feel the world has not forgotten us. That school later won the Aga Khan Award for architecture. But the real achievement was something deeper, which is related to our theme again, that architecture rebuilt dignity. There is another story of Laurie Baker, who was called as the architect of the poor. When he passed away, there was a headline in Times of India, architecture of the poor passed away. So after the flood in Kerala, Laurie Baker was asked to design low-cost houses. The instruction was, they are poor people, don't spend much. But Baker chose to listen to the people, not just the five. One woman told him, I don't want charity, I want dignity, a space where I can light my lamp. With the same budget, he redesigned small courtyards, verandas, prayer corners, and the materials were modest, but the thought was profound. When families moved, they said, now we feel human again. The houses were affordable, but most importantly, they were respectful. Our own keynote speaker today is architect Yatin Pandya. I will not elaborate on this story because he will cover this story in his keynote speaker. There is one example after the huge earthquake. He has designed rehabilitation project for the affected people. So he will explain. And there was also, he called all the people there. And then he asked all the people, community participation while designing the houses. I think he will cover that in his keynote address. Even in our country, like Charles Korea, V.V. Doshi, they all respected the people first, climate, the resources of the place, and the culture, and then they designed the building.
Then again, there is a story of urban resettlement in Mumbai. In a slum redevelopment project, families were shifted from self-built settlements to high-rise buildings far away from their workplaces. On paper, it was a success story. In reality, livelihoods were lost and social networks were broken. One woman said, we were not rehabilitated, we were uprooted. This is very sad. And these words changed the policy conversation, reminding us that distance, sunlight, safety, and community are not luxuries, they are human rights. Then, if we go to nature, there are Panchamahamutras. Our own ancient knowledge tells us that life is held in balance by this Panchamahamutras. Prithvi, which denote like it is known for stability, Jal for adaptability, Agni, energy for transformation, Vayu, air for movement, and Akasha, space for freedom. When anyone is missing, imbalance begins. A building without sunlight lacks Agni, without ventilation lacks Vayu, without open space lacks Akasha. Such a structure may stand, but it can't breathe. So, as an architect, we give soul to that building. It's not just with the structure and materials. Architect gives soul to that building. So, architecture without empathy is just construction. Architecture with compassion becomes transformation. And Mirza Ghalib has beautifully said, हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश में दम निकले हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश में दम निकले बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले मतलब that our aspiration for a human just an inclusive world also be like this so many so deep and even when many are fulfilled they still feel too few. In this conference, we have received 141 abstracts. We have selected 65 full papers, 3 international and 62 from India. So over the next 2 days, we will discuss about ecological design, energy efficiency, social justice, technology, and policy. So let us remember that this conference is not just an academic event. It is a commitment. Respect the earth, recognize the invisible, restore what has damaged, and reimagine what is possible. I would like to place on record my deep appreciation for the organizing committee, conveners of this conference, Architect Neha Saxena, Architect Barsha, then secretaries of this conference, Architect Megha and Sonali from Mahe, and all the organizing team who have worked to organize this conference, our institutional leadership for their vision and support, our partners and collaborators who have joined hands with us to make this initiative possible. And most importantly, I would like to thank each one of you present here in person and online for choosing to spend your time and attention on this theme. In a world full of distractions, choosing to engage with questions of equity, sustainability, and social justice is itself an act of responsibility. So let's be responsible architect of this country, architects, planners, and designers of this country. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for briefing us about the SCBE 2025 and helping us understand the significance of this conference. Now, moving ahead, I would like to invite our conference chair, Professor Dr. Kalyan Mukherjee, sir, Director, MFAB, Mahe Manipal, to kindly address the gathering about the conference collaboration.
Good morning. The august presence of the dais, the audience. Actually, we don't need to go as Mr. Madhura in other lectures. You don't need to go too far to find out cases of self-built architecture. I am from the state of West Bengal, and some 150 years back, uh, we had this concept called Vishwabharati, Shanti, where even today classes are held in an environment which is not exactly what we call classroom. There are numerous such examples of what we call bare feet architecture all around us. And sometimes we don't even notice them. Coming to collaborations, yes, the social consciousness that has to be in our built environment is obviously everyone's need. And very well put, it's not luxury. It's not luxury. I can recall one incident from Calcutta where the tallest building was coming up and the people in surrounding plots, they put up a petition complaining that the building would steal them of their sunlight. So issues like this have happened and are happening all around us, and we need to, as architects, we need to sit up and actually take notice and work accordingly. The Manipal group of institutions have been working together in several fronts. One of them is this conference. There will be further conferences and symposiums in the future. And we would we would be looking forward to these collaborations. We would be looking forward to setting examples for others. We need to take care of the several, actually 17 different sustainable development goals which were adopted at the Global Convention 2016. Some few months back, we had a conference, international conference at Manipal, which was on everyday urbanism. So the collaborations will continue, and Manipal, of course, I wish from the bottom of my heart that Manipal takes the lead, brand Manipal, those people what needs to be done, what is the need of the hour, and let us hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for helping us understand the importance of teamwork and collaborations. May I now request Dean Foster, Professor Dr. Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, sir, to kindly address the gathering.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to all. Survey Dr. Nitin Sharma, President, Manipal University, Jaipur. Dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. Dear participants and students, a very good morning. So Madhura ma'am has elaborated the purpose of the design in the sector. I have one phrase for this. Design with purpose, not for elegance. I hope this supplies everything. Generally, we design for elegance, forgetting why we require a design, for whom it is. And another phrase, which is has a technology background, don't design for efficiency, design for planet. So there are thousands of tons of papers, research papers, which show that my design, my project, my object has improved the efficiency by so and so %. First, you damage the environment, then you improve it incrementally. Rather than this, design your products, your houses, so that it does not affect the environment at all. In fact, it should nurture life. So generally, as an engineer, that never goes out. When we design, when we are objective, we have a mathematical equation with an objective function, and in that objective function, sustainability is never good. So first we design our product or house or anything, and then add on sustainability on it, which increases the cost, which decreases the purpose. So the objective is you must have the objectives in architecture and design, that the objective functions should be sustainability, culture, community engagement, and technology. But do take care that technology should not overwhelm the design. It should only be for the well-being of the users. So thank you very much, organizing team, for organizing this conference after a very long time. I would appreciate the organizing team, the department, the student volunteers, our co-organizing partners and sponsors for seeing this conference on a very good, wonderful, built environment, which is the need of the earth these days, making it successful. I hope today and tomorrow you will enjoy the debate, you will enjoy the networking, and you will enjoy the hospitality of MUG. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir, to enlighten us about the conscious designing of spaces and community building. Moving forward, I shall now request our keynote speakers to briefly address the gathering with the opening reflections on their respective conference themes. Firstly, I would like to invite Professor Bharat Dahiya, sir.
Good morning, Vice Chancellor, sir, Excellencies, delegates, and friends. I came for this conference from Thammasat University in Bangkok. Thammasat is a translation from the Sanskrit word Dharma Shastra. So it seems that the Thai people really cherish the wisdom they have received from India. So my keynote is called Socially Conscious Architecture, Harnessing the Traditional Architectural Wisdom. My purpose would be to show that socially conscious architecture is nothing new. It is found in all countries. Some countries that I have worked in, and I would like to bring you case studies. For example, from Mongolia, from Thailand, from China, as well as India, India. So the idea is that socially conscious architecture that we are trying to build in the modern times, we are trying to contextualize our design theory, design practice to the new conditions that have come out because of the development path we have followed. We have, as Vandana Shiva said, because of industrialization, the economy first disconnected with environment, and secondly, the economy disconnected with the society. We are now trying to philosophically integrate economy, environment, and society into economy. And the biggest elephant in the room, if not the big one, is the culture, which nobody talks about. So I will be also touching upon some cultural dimensions in my presentation. I hope that you will enjoy it. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Now inviting architect Yatin Pandya, sir.
Namaskar, very good morning. Indeed, honored to be here and welcome you all to the fifth year of New Era AC. It's not AD. I very strongly believe that I think post Corona, we should be referring to our time frame rather than BC and AD to BC and AC before Corona and after Corona. Because I think despite the pains some of this left us, I think it left us with a lifetime generational wisdom. It was a great equalizer. It taught us humility. It taught us frugality. It taught us the core values of sustainability. It taught us that any development, basically, if it looks into two fundamental principles, that is human to human symbiosis and human to nature. And I think that is the reminder if we carry all our developmental actions into, I think it will always be in fashion and in vogue. Nothing goes away. And I think it is that lesson is probably what I wish to just remind us all during the debate and discussion in the thing, in the presentation. Uh, One of the stories that I'm reminded of from our own kind of some of these canons that pupil goes to learn architecture and goes to architect, teach me architecture, and architects are usually very smart in passing the buck. So he said, how can I teach you architecture unless you know sculpting? Because it's about form and massing. So better be a sculptor first. He goes to a sculptor. The sculptor also says that I can't teach you sculpting until you know dance because it's about the body form, shape, akar, vata. So he goes to a dancer. The dancer says that without music there is no dance because it's all about rhythm, chords, and you must be attuned to that. The musician says that without literature there is no music because it's not just cacophony of sound, but there is an expression to the words. So you must be a literary person. He goes to a poet. Poet says, how can poetry be taught? It's all about living life. You just live life, look around, absorb, analyze, interpret, infer, and apply. And that's where the design and development is. So I think core of everything is living life, looking around. And I think that's what if we remind ourselves that it's not egocentricity, it's always for place, people, and planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now inviting Professor Dr. Sharma, ma'am.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, respected keynote speakers, dignitaries of the dais and on the dais as well, and faculty and dear students. I would like to congratulate at the outset, regarding the collaboration that Dr. Madhura has taken up, I think collaboration is the way forward now, and, not really, kind of isolating. And although, we have been talking about sustainability for years on, and out of that, I think the three pillars, I think that we will have been, environment and economy, which has been actually driving the whole thing. But we have missed out on, the contribution of the social contribution largely. And so I'm happy and glad that, this conference essentially focuses on the social aspect of it. And so I think that is something, which I'm looking forward for a lot of learning as well, and even knowing from, how each of the participants have engaged with them. My keynote address is going to be focusing on the fact that how people kind of engage with spaces, and which means, all kinds of spaces, especially at the city level. So it's like, people and urbanism, that is what I've been focusing on. So looking forward to kind of, have after my own presentation and interaction with each one of you as well. And thank you so much, Manipal University for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this day today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now request the Honorable President NUJ, Dr. N.N. Sharma sir, to kindly address the audience and declare the conference open.
Good morning. Thank you for replying first one. Good morning, respected Bharat sir, Pandya sir, Anjali ma'am, Professor Kalyan, Dean, Professor Kuldeep, Dr. Madhura, my colleagues, distinguished guests, and my dear students, dear participants. First of all, let me welcome you to Manipal University, Jaipur. I mean, when you enter this campus, some of this you can see there. Built environment, social conscience. And if you go deeper inside, you'll find some answers. I honestly tell you that I missed this conference details till morning, till I was told, Madhura Madam Are. So we know that she's a passionate lady and high energy. And the conference is there. I started searching. Conference kya hai? Honest speaking. See the built environment and that too socially conscious, high conscious. I think it starts from Manipal. There is a Manipal is the best example. When our founder, late Dr. Konse Madhav Anand Pai, had chosen a land which was barren. Most of you must be knowing. Some of my colleagues have come from Manipal also. They can tell you better stories. Kuch bhi nahi tha. There was nothing there. He has socially responsibly said that I will not take agricultural land. He had a dream, a vision to make a kind of educational atmosphere because his mother, revered mother, has said not to go outside but to serve the community. And therefore, he started building his dreams around the community, the society. That particular Manipal place where I have been there for 18 months, a holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. So, on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now, if you go, the kind of energy you feel on 18 months, a wiser person, and he started holy period, 18, I quote some of you that 18 is a very lucky number. Mahabharata was fought for 18 days. Now Plastic have come out. Plastic is already existing in different forms, but we are extracting plastic synthetically. Whether you want that is a built environment, I'm not sure. We are using plastic inside. What music has done is we are trying, this is a SDG based. We are in, I'm not remembering, but something around 301 to 400 in SDGs THE rank. We are also present QS and THE. SDGs, we are very high. So in SDGs, for example, we are using the plastic bottles. Today we have converted that into glass bottles. I'm still struggling with that cap. So recently, you know that in our convocation, our DGCSIR has come. She says that I can provide you a cap which is biodegradable. This is all a part of built and this is an ecosystem. We need water to drink. Rajasthan, the most problematic area, particularly in this Baghu, is water. Water, if at all present, is contaminated. We have changed the faucets of one building completely. I can tell you that before this change, which we are consciously moving but slowly, one punch of the tap was spending around 600 liters, 600 milliliters of water. One punch, 600 milliliters of water. That kind of tap was there. Now we are dispensing with one punch of water, 180 milliliters of water. 4 times we are saved there. There may be a possibility that we can go further and further the designs and the kind of things that you built in this environment. I look forward, for example, if you see the Jali, Charoka, and all these buildings, I'm sure that this is going to be big. Jali Charoka has reduced the power consumption by 7%. My ACs are 7% more efficient because of this, because corridors are wide. They give me that cooling. Otherwise, in 48 degrees centigrade, what is going to happen? We have to use more ACs. But they have been made efficient because of some architects. The great architects have made this kind of environment. I'm sure that this is not my subject. Wish to love hear this conference. I wish all the participants and distinguished guests to enjoy, and also this conference a great success, fruitful for all of you. And also enjoy Manipal University Jaipur. See, go around and see, give your suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for motivating us all with your inspiring words. Now, I would like to invite the convener of SCBE 2025, Architect Neha Saxena, ma'am, Associate Professor, SAND, to deliver the vote of thanks, which shall then be followed by a group photograph session. Very good morning to everyone. I, Neha Saxena, convener of the International Conference on Socially Conscious Built Environment, SCBE 2025, would like to propose the vote of thanks for today's inaugural session. First and foremost, on behalf of the School of Architecture and Design, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture, Manipal University, Jaipur, and the entire organizing team, I express our deepest gratitude to Professor N. Sharma, President NUJ, for gracing this occasion with his presence, and NUJ leadership for their conscious encouragement and support to our academic endeavors. My sincere thanks to Dr. Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, Dean, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture, for his guidance, motivation, and constant backing in conceptualizing and hosting this conference at NUJ. We extend our sincere gratitude to our distinguished keynote speakers, Professor Bharat Bhaiya, Architect Jatin Pandya, and Dr. Anjali Krishan Sharma, who have traveled nationally and internationally, for accepting our invitation and enriching the conference with their valuable insights. We especially thank Professor Thomas Spiegelholzer, who has joined us online from Berlin. Special word of thanks to Professor Dr. Madhura Yadav, Director, School of Architecture and Design and Dean Student Welfare, for the inspiring inaugural address and for steering the vision that made this conference possible. A heartfelt thanks to the Directorate of Research and the entire NUJ administration for their continuous guidance and unwavering support in making this conference possible. I also extend gratitude to our academic partners, MSAP Mahir Manipal and SODA Mahir Dubai, chaired by Dr. Kalyan Kumar Mukherjee and Dr. Bhakti Ore respectively, for their collaboration and support, which has enriched the stature and reach of this international conference. We also thank our industry collaborators, IIA Rajasthan Chapter, IGBC and ASHRAE Rajasthan Chapter, for their valuable partnership and support. Our sincere appreciation goes to Gyan Mandir, our sponsor, for their generous contribution to SCBE 2025. To all paper presenters, participants and delegates joining us from India and abroad, thank you for choosing SCBE as a platform to share your work in media. A heartfelt thanks to our section chairs and co-chairs for agreeing to guide the technical sessions over the next 2 days and for helping us maintain academic rigor and quality in the evaluation of papers. I would also like to acknowledge the silent but crucial contributions of our technical team, administrative staff, and student volunteers who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that every detail of this inaugural function and the conference logistics is in place. Finally, to the organizing committee members of the School of Architecture and Design, thank you for your collective effort and spirit for collaboration. Your support has truly made SCBE a reality. With this, I once again thank each one of you present here today for your valuable time and participation. We hope that the coming sessions will be intellectually stimulating and will lead to meaningful collaborations and new directions in socially conscious, sustainable, and innovative built environments. Thank you and have a wonderful conference. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now requesting all the dignitaries and one and all present here to kindly assemble for a group photograph in front of the stage.
thanking the School of Architecture and Design at Manipal University in Jaipur, as well as Bhai Manipal, for this invitation and this honor to speak with you on a very important topic. I have titled my presentation as Socially Conscious Architecture, Harnessing the Traditional Architectural Wisdom. I should say at the outset that I'm not a professionally trained architect. However, I
And so that's how the architectural wisdom shines through. So this is, in other words, you can take as a non-professional example. This is, in other words, you can take as a non-professional example. This is, in other words, you can take as a non-professional example. This is, in other words, you can take as a non-professional example. This is
wanted it looked like this, but you can see on the left side there is a slant. Okay, that's where the water rises up to. So the water will be hardly touching this floor. And in 2011 flood, actually it ended above. And so the boats can be parked here, and then people will just walk up the slant and go to their house. This is the cross section. In some places, they have put footpaths like the one above, where you see a shaded structure, where you can walk in front of the houses to connect, because behind them is the paddy fields, which are full of water. So these are houses built on levees, and so frontage is towards the river, not the other way around. And where there are no frontage, you basically connect between houses with the help of boats. And so, in some parts where there is more land available, the water is channeled through smaller drainages to either fill up water in big jars like the ones you see here for drier part where there is no rain, no fresh water, because these are disconnected communities from urban infrastructure and so on, although less being so. So here you can see that how the various activities in a household are done with people who grow vegetables and so on. So how did it look like before? So this is the road side of the settlements. And this used to be in the olden times in a dry season. So you see Thailand is the second largest exporter of paddy rice. And this is how they used to bring. And then in the rainy season, the same street looked like this. You see, this is how in the dry season, this is in the wet season. And now it has become like this, the same place. Because of climate change and the management of drainage systems, so that people don't have to live and automobile can come and work with you. So this is how it has evolved over time from waterscape to landscape urbanism. And here you can clearly see what my colleague Pranay calls solid state perception or a liquid state perception. So on the right building is built on stilts, which can handle flood water. Below it, the person on the left does not seem to be connected with this environment. They have built a platform, and in rain, in the flood season, that much waste, or in terms of cubic meters of water, will be displaced, adding the flood burden to others. Bangkok used to be like this before. The pictures at the bottom show a little bit of old Bangkok, and the picture on top, which are from Silom area, one of the places people visit. There, the canals have been narrowed down to expand the city. And still, in some parts, in the western parts of Bangkok, you find this. And floating markets, you must have heard of floating markets, those who have been to Bangkok. Why floating market? Because people have to move. The shop is on the boat, and they sell things going through the canal. Now let's go to Japan and look at the intergenerational cycle of architecture, which is socially, culturally conscious. When I worked with the UN Habitat, I used to work in this building across. They call it Asian Crossroads over Steels. This is a environment-friendly architecture, you can see. And if you look at the Chinese philosophy about nature, they and it's related to one of their belief systems, which is Shinto, where everything has a spirit, almost equivalent to Atma, if you like. So plants, animals, people, elements, and they have kami. Kami is the spirit. And so there are years of cycles of growth, death, and rebirth. Different things grow and die at different phases of time. And so to worship these, respect these spirits, they build places of worship, which they call Shinto shrines. And so these are the dwellings of the kami. The sacred objects of worship representing the kami are stored in the innermost chamber, which we call sanctum sanctorum, or uh, uh, the in the Indian tradition, it's called by another name. Great, yeah. So in some cases, a mountain, waterfall, or a rock may be behind the shrine, which sort of follows the uh, Chinese tradition of feng shui. And so people go to these buildings for various purposes. For New Year, they also celebrate the Gregorian New Year, the start of spring. Uh, Newborn babies are taken there. Some wedding ceremonies take place there. And why? Who is behind all this? So the highest deity in Japan is the sun goddess, who is called Amaterasu Omikami. So Amaterasu is the one who illuminates the heaven, and she is considered to be the most august deity. You can think of uh, sun goddess or maybe Savitri here in the Hindu context. So the biggest, most important shrine in Shinto is Ise Jingu, and it is not very far away from Kyoto on the east side. So they follow a very old architecture to build a shrine for Amaterasu Omikami. So and it is from pre-Buddhist times, because Buddhism came to Japan in the 7th century through China and Korea. And so what they call this style is a Yuitsu Shinmei Tokuri ancient architectural style, where the floor of the building is raised. You can see all these pillars. This is a very big building. It looks very small in this picture. And so what they do is they rebuild this building every 20 years. There are two plots. So first they build one, and then after 20 years they build on the other plot, and they move the spirit of Amaterasu coming to the next one. And the reasons for reconstruction, which we can easily connect to today's SDGs and the socially conscious architecture that we are talking about, is cultural heritage of highest significance. Passing on the building techniques. You know, we build in stone or we build in concrete, and then we move on. And I don't know who cares for the masonry, the skills. And some of our old buildings, we don't even find those sculptors or the masons and others. So natural decay of the natural material with which it is built, so it is recycled. And the parts of this old shrine are distributed to other shrines all over Japan. And a proper forest is there to make sure that there is 300 years in the future, you have the forest. So with that, we come to our own land, and where I focus on the case study of the call of the Gopuram in South India. Manipal has its origins in Karnataka. So Gopuram, as we know, is the doorway to the temples, especially in South India. Gopuram is taller than the main shrine, and it is meant to inspire spiritual aspirants to connect to the Brahma Tattva, the sacred knowledge of the Absolute, or the Paratattva, or the Aparatattva. And we come back full circle in terms of going from a day-to-day thing to a seasonal thing to an intergenerational, a 20-year cycle to something that is always there. Depends on how you are able to read it. So in one of the passages, we find that the Gopuram is calling, only mortals blinded by the fog of physical attachments and self-aggrandizing urges, and enslaved by the miasma of worldly desires, which are fleeting and false, you have forgotten me. The Gopuram is talking. The true nature, heritage, the eternal the source and sustenance of you all, who is not the Gopura, but who is inside the shrine. So come have faith in me, the everlasting me. Struggle out of the darkness and into the realm of light and come to the royal road of Shanti. That is the path of Dharma. Come, don't come. This is by Jesus Sai Baba, whose 100th years anniversary was celebrated last week in Puttaparthi. And this Gopuram is actually from Puttaparthi. So, where do we go from here? Looking ahead. So, if we look at carefully from all these case studies, we find that all these modern criteria, parameters of socially conscious architecture have been met across cultures in architecture of different style, different contexts, different climates, different geographies, and much more. They even go beyond the physical to metaphysical realms. And so, in terms of looking ahead, what's I think probably what Vice Chancellor sir was talking about, how do we build collaboration? And I think also Dr. Neha was talking about this. So the glorious past wants to make its way into the future. How can we facilitate this process as architects, planners, researchers, more so? And what kind of research and practice is needed? And more documentation is needed, which is good for university ranking. So in terms of opportunities, from at least my side, open for partnerships, you joint research, Scopus index publications. Okay. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time.
Now we open the question and answer round. If in case anybody has a question, sir is more than happy to answer your queries.
The first one is always difficult, but as I tell my yes, Anjali, please. Is there a moving microphone? Floating one? Okay.
I doubt it. I would like to congratulate you for the presentation. And I just had not my only observation, not in the question. Although we understand, the teacher has been meditated very well. And at the same time, we need to also find. We just of the consensus dialogue and the finished dialogue, it's not a lot of this clarity. So, although, tradition helps, but then, if you have any other option for it, then I think it is really a challenge, I would say. So, I think it's a return question to most of the students.
Yeah, I think you have asked perhaps one of the most important questions that we often come across. We have two dimensions here. First is to bring the past to the present, which means that we have to learn, we don't have to copy. We take the principles and use those principles to inform our built environment today. The second is that there is a lot of things are being blindly copied from elsewhere. And so we have to adapt that. When I worked on China with the World Bank, I found that they have a very interesting way to, I would not say import, but adapt. They will first understand it, they will then connect it to their own philosophy and practices, and then they will use it, and they will have their own take for it. In India, because we are used to English, we simply copy paste. There is no screen. Indian culture, Indian social consciousness, which we use to translate the foreign concepts, even if they are very scientific, no problem, but they are still foreign. They are not culturally adapted. So I find that this, whenever this copy is there, it basically ruins your culture. You do not have in your own language terminology to call that. You just use English word. I'll tell you why. The student who right now works in the Royal Language Department of Thailand government. And I asked him, how do you add new words to Thai language? And this is what he told me. He said, when a new word comes, which is not found in Thai dictionary, the first language they go to is Sanskrit. If there is a Sanskrit equivalent, they will include Sanskrit equivalent in Thai language. That's why Thai language, half of it is Sanskrit and Pali. Second, they will look for that word in Thai language. If they find a Thai equivalent, they will use it. And then if they do not find Thai or Sanskrit, then only they will use the actual English word. Who does this in our country? Nobody. If you are not doing about language, forget about architectural concepts. So we have to really wake up. I think we are waking up, but I think we need to do much better. I hope that answers your question.
Just in continuation with whatever you spoke, if you could be just specific about, just highlighting maybe two aspects of the traditional, Bangkok, whatever the houses that you talked about, and which can be, kind of carried forward. So at least the thread of continuity is there, which actually kind of, then we can talk about cultural heritage or
for example.
So just two examples, any specific.
Yeah, one example is that all buildings now in Thailand, in Bangkok especially, first several floors there is no residential. This is all parking. You may say, oh, but this is always like that. No, it's not always like that. It was not always like that. Parking was outside in a parking lot. But now the first 3-4 stories, after they had this 2011 big flood, are never built to live for human beings or for commercial activity. This is one example. Okay. What is the other example? Say from Mongolia. Mongolia, of course, it's a very difficult condition. You have to have double glazed housing to handle minus 40-degree temperature. But what people do in Mongolia is that they have a second home where they go and live in the summer on the periphery. So they still cannot live in concrete houses. In the summer, they go and live in the tent in the countryside. So they adapt. They still want to live like a traditional, and because it's a house you can buy about $700 to $800, you can buy the tent. So you pitch your tent a few days in the countryside and enjoy nomadic life. Okay, any other question? I see one hand here. My first, okay, so traditionally you can imagine what would be the nomads do in the open. They use the nature as for the nature's call, right? In terms of ownership, their family owns the tent. And the tent is, as I said, is not very costly. They have their own sheep, so they have the whole annual harvest of wool, and so they they use the petting method to enrich the current felt that they have, or to store it more for the next winter season. There is one I see on the other side.
Sir, I have seen only positive inputs about SDG, and constantly is coming from even, and everyone is adopting it. I can say the post-test thing, the blindly thing. So, is there any other side of the coin? Because I have my idea about it, and I have my own research about it, the other side of the SDG, the impact, the negative impact of SDG. But it's getting more and more, as per my observation. I want to know your input about it, because barely anybody talked about the negative side of SDG. because you work in particular that area, particularly positive side you working. So I want to know, do you have anything the other side of
Other side, okay. There's a lady behind you also had a question. I don't know if your question is connected. You are separate, okay. No, I mean, I hope I'm not being recorded. If you are recording, please pause it. Otherwise, I will be very diplomatic. And all that. Okay, very good.
Yes, sir. I'm a Kausha Hindu. Thank you for the presentation. I was very intrigued by the trade wedding in Mongolia. So my question is about Indian context. In Indian cities like Delhi, Mumbai, which are already very dense and like they're already pushed to their limit. What can be done in those cities? And also the second part would be like when I was coming here, I saw like mixed use hoardings and a lot of developments that would be happening here in Jaipur. So how do we integrate vernacular style in Indian context in these two type of cities?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I think that goes to the heart of this problem. You see, until we start valuing the so-called vernacular, which is actually a negative word in English language, the the colonialists put vernacular like, hey, this is your architecture, it does not match ours. So I think we need to go beyond the word vernacular. We have to talk some traditional, indigenous, I don't know, different terminologies. Uh, but the point of your question is, how does that inform the shape and form of cities today? And so this question cannot be answered in next 2 minutes. Okay, my take will be that unless we start documenting the type of principles that have governed traditional human settlements in India and the kind of principles they have followed, if we do not learn from those two parts, we will never be able to use it in a larger context. And I do not think a lot of people are doing it. This is an area of research, not for 10 years, not for 20, next 100 years. We have so much in our country that we find something happens outside, we just go Google Gaga about it. But we have 28 states, every village has a different landscape. Actually, I was talking to the conference, little discussion I had with the conveners of the conference. Uh, and each village has its own landscape and so on. But we need learning of building codes from our traditional human settlements. We are not doing that. I think nobody is doing in the so-called world that was colonized because our self-respect was brought down so badly low that we look at our things as something useless and something coming from outside as divine or sublime or you can use the words. So I have a very big pain about this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope it was enjoyable. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for helping us broaden our perspectives on how the projects in Mongolia and Japan were carried on with the perspective of integrating waterscape into the Bangkok, into the built environment of Bangkok. Requesting Professor Dr. Madhura ma'am to kindly felicitate Bharat sir. Moving forward, I would like to invite our second keynote address by architect Yatin Pandya. Architect Yatin Pandya is an acclaimed architect, author, and academician, leading Footprints Earth, a practice rooted in environmental sustainability and socially responsive design. A graduate of Set University with a master's from McGill University, he has spent over 4 decades shaping architecture, urban design, and housing across India and beyond. Recipient of over 50 national and international awards, including the UN Habitat Special Mention and the Kite Stone Foundation Design Prize, his work stands at the intersection of sustainability, cultural continuity, and human centric design. His globally referenced books, extensive publications, and decades of teaching have profoundly influenced contemporary architecture thought and pedagogy. Please welcome architect Yatin Pandya sir.
Namaskar, I'll stand here, deliver, and then deliver. No, not really. Otherwise, I wanted to be mobile. They were kind enough to give me this to hide my punch, but I thought since I have it, might as well drop it, so I'm going to come there. But I'll be stationary here. Thank you so much. Okay, just to elaborate on a few of the opening statements that I made and maybe continue on the arguments set up earlier. As I say that as a designer, we have this obligation of designing for the place, people, and the planet. And the basic goal is to create humane, sustainable, and the timeless built environment. As I already mentioned, that a lot of values we learned, and in fact, it got convinced by establishing that eventual answer lies in these two sort of symbiosis, human to human and human to nature. And we saw the results that just undue systems went out for 2 months. We could correct what we had actually messed up with the planet. Nature would correct itself. So it is just a reminder that I think setting aside that bias of technology versus nature, indoors versus outdoors, and that's in that light, we need to re-examine the kind of policies that we want to drive around. We had this whole idea of smart cities. As I always say, that no dictionary will give you any different meaning of what is smart. But if this happens to be the image that kind of governs that idea of being smart, then we wonder, is it really a vision or it simply remains a slogan? All over the world, and now these are the slides, and I'm willing even as an Ahmedabadi to put any amount of bet to kind of working now. Thank you. So, if anybody can identify any three of these, I'm happy to offer anything of that. We don't have time, nor do we, I think, have any winner here. Or everybody is a winner. You guess anyone, anywhere, even if I mix up these names, which are right now true, I think it would still stand. Is this the idea of the kind of thing that we're talking about as development, as one that reflects, and why go anywhere else? Right here in India, as diverse a cultural context, climatic context, environmental context, and still the answer is supposedly the same. As against, both of these are contemporary. So, part reference to the last question that was asked, I'm suddenly very different that, these become a polar across. They could be two different thought processes, but both of these are contemporary Kerala. So, to brush that traditional is anti-present is wrong to start with. Both have been lived in, both are part of us today, both are present. They are not the relics of the past. We need to remember that which Kerala is right for us, which Jaipur is appropriate for us, and which Kolkata should we be promoting or looking forward to. And the whole thing lies right here, image versus identity. And then once again, I think Corona taught us what we wanted to present ourselves on a screen versus sitting at home, what we felt comfortable about. So image is what we want others to see us as, while identity is truly what our DNA is about. Unfortunately, we are driven more by the upper half rather than what ideally should be the lower half. So then what really is the true DNA of us here as Indian, as the larger context, if we can just generalize with one denominator? We should, is this a paradox or these are the kind of dimensions of the same coin? This is where I begin differentiating the previous to previous sort of question. Tradition and history, they are not synonyms. This is where I think we need to understand clearly in context of India. While history may be a dead past, Ityas versus Pranali, history may be a dead past, but tradition is a living history, you know. So I think we make a mistake. We often look at the manufacturing rate to say something is outdated. Just because it is 100 years doesn't mean it is past and forgotten. What we should be looking at is an expiry date. You know, something from yesterday may be still today, but something that might mature, you know. Here I can say whiskey and I can't. But so to me, I think in India, we are living the past as true kind of extension of who we are. And that you can see that that's why we simultaneously live in three time zones. Our moorings from the past and aspirations for tomorrow coexist to create realities of today. Look at this. This is today sixth largest city of India, Ahmedabad. And look at that. The message is to become a global citizen. Australia calling, apply for higher studies there. But the vehicle used and as effectively and as good Ahmedabadi miser way that rather than spending crores in IPL for a small slot where everybody goes for washroom at that time and nobody looks at the advertisement, this is 2,000 rupee a day and it can very effectively tell Ahmedabadis about the message. So is this a contradiction or that's a coexistence that we are talking about of a time zone? We are about caring and sharing. You know, it's not individual identity, but a collective identity. And that's why our obligation of not remaining esoteric, but being part of what is the collective, you know, essence of things. And pluralism, you know, what in belief system, as many people, as many gods, to the attire, you know, 1 6 yard sari, and how many ways can it be worn? And it looks different on different body contours. So one of the most versatile solution in design for everyone, anytime. And my favorite is the food, you know, the idea of thali as a combination meal. Let's compare with yours and my favorite, the pizza, you know. You're given the choices of the crust and the toppings, but once cooked, first bite tastes the same as the next, as the same as the last, and you eat the same pizza as I do. We can share the experience of food alike. Turn it to the idea of thali, not boasting the ingredients, but the idea that it's a plural in the sense that you are the designer of your bite. Same ingredients, completely cooked, rushed out to all, but as designer, you design every bite uniquely. First bite did not taste the same as the next, did not taste the same as the last. And you eat the same thali as I do. We can not compare the experience of food alike because my sequence may be different, my combination may be different, and you can see my proportion may be different. You know? So that is the idea of mix and match. And that's why, you know, even samosa also doesn't come without two kinds of chutney. Idli is blend, but you see the design of this. There is bland and there is spicy. There is crunchy and there is solid. There is glossy and there is liquid. There is sweet and there is sour. So you can mix and match. If you know it comes to here, that now I can't eat, not by the boredom of the space. And with this very kind of intent, it is not a boring single standard answer. As many places, even we say Rajasthan is one food, no, you would have variations by region and whatnot. The formula is the same, but there is no Indian food by ingredient. There is Indian food by concept. And I think that's where we need to understand that the difference in terms of idea versus that formula. Anything becoming formula might go wrong. So design is not about one answer to one question kind of a game. It's about asking many questions, finding many answers to each question, and then picking one answer that answers most to all questions. So that means that ability to discern between appropriate and inappropriate. There's nothing like good, bad, ugly. It's always appropriate or inappropriate. And I often like to compare our profession with that of a doctor. Doctor is not there to kind of just pre-decide and say, "Okay, as per the corona chalra," you know, even at that time, people might have had some other diseases. So he examines and he eventually gives what is right for each, including placebo effect and just sugar pills if it requires so, you know. And a good cure is not giving a pill to suppress your fever, but you would say where it is, you would tell me to exercise, diet control, daily regime, and then say if you are lenient, you can go extra. You know? So that is the whole idea of what design entails. That eventually
It's about adding value and what is right for place, people, and planet. And if that is the idea of a holistic design, are these the examples that measure up to that kind of a definition? To me, this is too quick, too singular, and too literal an idea that if child is dirtying the attire while crawling along the floor, you don't design the attire like a mop ke jahan jahan jayega, pocha lagata jayega. So these are all the smart but quick and singular dimension. Your shoe is more expensive than the probably in many other your body perhaps. And Shringar, lipstick has to be a poetry. We used to have Shraddha Kapoor or Ekta Kapoor. Every Hindi used to be every day different or different character. For skin, we have a template चाहिए. Control alt delete all two single stroke. Hot noodle, but getting late to your fan to the. And as architects, we are not too behind. I don't know if they're students, but don't feel afraid, architect की impression आगे चलती है. बहुत creative लोग होते हैं. समझना नहीं है तो सबके लिए free है. कोई दिमाग में आता है. Don't worry. To make number, and I think we do PhD programs on that. But we can add value through design, may it be human, may it be satire, may it be environment, may it be economic. I'm not obsessed with toilets, but I mean, they can also one theme, but there are many things you can see. You can feel Maharaja there, or big thing. And now the ultimate today is the airline. It's epitome of the smallest volume, not even the plan and the space. If we don't misbehave, very clean, very light, very, very optimal, etc. So, designed to add value. For example, these are just designs of switches. First one, as you keep longer, the host frowns at you that maybe it's too long and invites you to shut it out. The middle one top is for us from Gujarat, especially Ahmedabad. We are very penny pincher. So every time you have to put the light on, it's a point, and that hurts. It is also a romantic for a candle light that there, like that's it. But it serves the purpose. The one on the bottom, UK, there are no patawalas. Every time you hang your coat, the light comes off, and then you take it off without anybody else. It is on. And the right top here, probably the French, they are very romantic. Okay, you just have to whisper, can I turn you on? The gadgets, by the time from Amazon, it reaches home, maybe it's already obsolete, I'm sure we all know from iPhones. Bacha bacha ke 16 liya to 17 aa gaya, something down. Can we not design it for next avatar? We believe in avatars. Like here, this is Heineken beer bottle way back in 70s. It was designed with a squarish kind of form with serrations. So once you go high in spirits, that can become a brick in the wall. This is the technology is a tool. So there is no debate about that being a thing or not today. It's all about AI. It is a tool. It must help give a better quality of life. Nothing else and nothing more. So if in the desert you got to keep the medicine refrigerated and you use the solar, it's not a close or a paradox. It better be done that way. So sustainability is just a contextual adjustment, the local jugaad that we are all very familiar with. The left-hand side is typically when it becomes a formula and where we go wrong. This is just a the same scientist that coined the term global warming is doing, I don't know, $1 million project to kind of oxygenate the planet. Should natural seeding of plants not do it no cost? The one on the top, like any other laptop, I have an extra layer of a bamboo chip, and I call it a green laptop. So that's a kind of fallacy that we need to understand. What we need is an answer like this, that is children in Africa are very, very happily taking turn to turn the wheel merry-go-round. but by default, mechanically, that is connected to the lower aquifer and it lifts it to the overhead tank and 24/7 by gravity you get some water. So I think these are the kind of answers. So the point is that post-corona, again, we need to redefine our norms of space and the kind of living standard which are rooted to the place, its reality, as well as aspirations. Imitating from somewhere else ends up into such kind of disasters. When we singly sourced copy, then it's plagiarism. Multi-source copy is usually PhD. Any design development needs to cover the six fundamental parameters. Then it's a complete design. Timeless aesthetics because building lasts beyond us. Socio-cultural appropriateness because always for someone. Environmental sustainability because we've exhausted resource and our decisions can make a huge positive or negative impact. Functional efficiency, which is exactly why you're called for. Economic affordability without which it won't be viable and structural strength because if the buildings have to last beyond being so to be. One idea of, again, when we say aesthetics, experiential, it's not an abstract term. Let's run through one example and why. The kind of examples from past. For three performance reasons, we should look at them. For the principles, one, that even after, Jaipur, I was blessed to be here, 300-year-old city, and I never got tired if I every time get invited to revisit, I'll not get tired to go to the old city ever and ever and ever again. So if it has proven itself to be worthy or be like even 3 centuries later, does any of those lines of steel glass building even invite you to take a picture second time? So one, they have proven their worth about timelessness of aesthetics. Second, socio-cultural appropriateness. They've been for people, by people, of people. So even today, if they happen to be close to the ways of life of the people, I want to look at that. And lastly, if they were before the electricity days and still perform, why can't we learn those principles? So it is not the romance of the past for which we should look at that, but three absolute performance reasons which they have demonstrated till today is the reason we look at that. So for example, this is 5 century old a way of in a hot dry climate which has no perennial river. How do you sustain? This is it is sort of outskirts of Ahmedabad, and this is a step well that you dig a hole. Essentially it's a 6-story descent. This typically the drawings in architecture would tell you, but what is really the true experience of that? It's a day-to-day thing, so it's not a monument. We right now see it as monument. It is a whole source of survival, and that's why it has been connected even to the whole cycle of birth and death. All that, and including the what do you call the marriage. Many of these are still active. The newlyweds are brought here to seek blessing for before they go on for honeymoon for the sansar. But look at the journey now. Architectural design that comes in to make that experientially rich. From middle of nowhere, you see these two outcrop of stones and the series of steps. So this is just a suggestion that come here and everything is below ground. You will still know nothing. Now look at the irony. To go down, you need to climb up. To take the first step and the void further is revealed to you. So you just get an invite that, okay, there's something there. You have curiosity and you get led there. Now when you come, remember that is the open and not covered roof. So that means the light that becomes your visual focus. Drawn by that, you come to this point. Now you are surrounded on 3 sides by the steps. So you turn to the fourth. And that is where you get a beautiful invitational hug by the monument, welcome to my precinct. And it tells you that I'm so long, I'm this far, this is my limit, but you are not a crow to fly. So it has indicated a clue, but you have to take the architectural element called stair. And now what does stair mean? That every step I'm transposed horizontally and vertically. So my composition, my sense of control, everything changes. For example, very first platform, you have you still have sky. So it feels like a big parapet terrace that you are on. There's a intensity of light, and there is a particular visual composition of the same elements. You go a platform down, and now the light is slightly diffused. It gives you a little extra sense of enclosure, and if you are sensitive, a little cooler temperature, because as you go down, the temperature also kind of cools off. And look at this, further down, you get really sucked in as if you have come to the well for ablution. So without even dipping your feet, you feel that you have been part of the Netherlands, Patarlo. That's one of the associations we have. Now, like a thali, if you walk straight in the previous pictures, it was always symmetrical. But if you walk along the edge, for you, the composition is very different. So visual composition changes. And that's why with light as interactive, every time you go there, if you don't carry camera, you would repent that maybe there's something different now. That's the whole idea of freshness. And you taking your journey, your pace, your path, and it's your experience, which you can't compare with somebody else's. So each one's unique, like a bite and the taste. And only at the end, water is revealed. So water was merely an excuse. The whole essence was in a journey, If Mr. Trump wants to come and visit, he should not have commando dropping him down off the parachute. I think he'd rather walk, and that's the true reason. Otherwise, we can export the water anytime. These are also the resting place. So again, a functional device, but it becomes a social place for the travelers to rest there in the afternoon. There's a captain, etc. So, and even the women every day doing a mundane job, that's where the previous slide that, there are steps next to the water. So you can just think about your mother's in law, praise your husband, whatever. And there are also notional connects to this. That one is going to the womb of Mother Earth, and the second one is the tripartite division, heaven in the sky, earth in the ground, and the Netherlands, the Patar look below. And those are the symbols that add and conjure to that notion. So even 6th century letters, and that's what I mean by tradition, not a history, not a forgotten past, but a continuum of yesterday. For example, any day you go, this is my another challenge and bet that this niche is always garlanded, worshipped, or there is a diya in front. So those have continued despite a functional obsolescence. That now you are not even allowed to touch the water functionally, and yet notionally it stays with you, and as architecturally or experientially as tourist, it still engages you. To go down 6 stories without elevator. So the principles that we take back, not emulate the material or copy the kind of elements, but principle one is disparate visual and fixed physical axis. You know where you have to go, but like a labyrinth, it takes you around. For example, none of these allow you to go straight, including Islamic architecture, we can always go symmetrical on an axis. But look at this, the landscape element of water. It is not that you have to first swim, bathe yourself, and then go to Mumtaz. It just allows you to explore the landscape, go off the axis and then see it from multiple points. That's what works even with temple, with installation in between. Doesn't matter the choices of movement, like Ali, that wherever you come from, eventually takes you to Sanctum Sanctorum, but your path, your route, your routine can be different. And that's why movement holds the key. It's not the diagram and plan, but how mitigate the encounters. How do you find your own path? And kinesthetic perception while in movement, from afar, when you come to Shah Jahan Gate, till that you don't really know Taj Mahal that well. At Shah Jahan Gate, you have the Tantanine moment. That's where you know there are 4 minarets and the dome. After that, look at the water. So you forget when you go down. At one point, they allow you to come back to the axis and take your selfie holding the choti of the thing. Then again, it's gone, and stair is not straight, symmetrical like Asiatic Library of Mumbai. You have to take opposite one and then climb. And look at the first and the last slide. It's a fantastic recall with a similar tunnel. Remember, there were 4 minarets. You've forgotten about it. Now I am here. I take you to Mumtaz. So amazing narrative, which is how that architectural elements kind of play their part. Like in a good film, each one plays their part. When you integrate unbuilt or the nature with the built, it never goes stale. Otherwise, built never changes. but it's the unbuilt and that chemistry, life, water, vegetation, people and activity, that's nature. It is always different anytime. And finally, the notions, you can, in design, if you understand the cultural notions, you can make effective difference. For example, you know, we have this self-assumed social service of painting public corridor red with the pan space. No amount of warning signs, they're usually spitted on the first, you can't even read what's there. But if you use these cultural icons, people stop misbehaving. So if that is the power of understanding notion and therefore affecting the behavior, I think that's why we need to understand that. That's therefore leading us to socio-cultural appropriateness in design. Now, there was a study done in Japan that this formal executives with ties and tuxedos, if they were allowed to wear informal, the kind of dressing that they would like, they would have felt the same level of physical comfort with 3-degree warmer AC temperature. It was the wrong dressing, the culprit for unduly having to check up AC to feel comfortable. Imagine in Kerala, MNC wanting to have everybody wearing three-piece tie tuxedo in Terilin black suite, then you can only expect of air conditioning. But if Mr. Mohanlal or local people, they were moved and they're best tested, are they primitive or they're appropriately dressed for that particular place and time. We knew Gandhi who could, very dignifyingly wrap and unwrap. Is it that eternal Gandhi we should be after, or we should continue to align with what's cool and fashionable for the time? This design, left hand side, small alley, but looks positive and ready to kind of have festivities to celebrate that. Similar scale alleys in a planned city with bylaws, which leave a space between two rows as environmental or sanitation lane. But look at this design decision that only kitchen window and not a door. That means you throw all your muck out, and what was responsible for better environment has been the cause for a kind of regenerated environment. It could have simply been transformed. Instead of window, you have a door, and the people would appropriate that space. So that's the kind of way. If you understand, look at this left-hand side, Ahmedabad, UNESCO heritage site, and there's appropriation, there's indoor, outdoors, the blurred interface. While 15% compulsory space, but no window to participate, and that has relegated itself to a desolate sort of an open space. Too large a space versus a decentralized but interconnected small open spaces and traditional quarter, like a rubber stamp, big percentage at one point, and it again doesn't get used. And it's not the money, it's the mindset. For example, left-hand side at no money in a slum with a raised platform in the shade, it becomes a public square and well attended to. As against on the right, Mumbai is very expensive real estate, all we know. But look at this open space at so-called the back of the building. Because why is it back? Because you have a pipeline over a window, which means I have nothing to do on that side. That mindset, that syndrome has laid it into a place not to be. Otherwise, it's a priceless real estate and as beautiful colonial postcard as you see bottom right, the same building at the back. And we have answers. Right now in Ahmedabad, one of the urban squares, Manikchok as it's called, early morning it's a cow grazing ground. The same place in the afternoon becomes a business district, and same in the evening is an outdoor eatery. So it's a multiple, as you were saying, diagonal metamorphosis of a public square. We don't have 5 times the open space. The same space can be made to work for the 5 different uses of the day. Environmental sustainability, as I said, we are responsible for as much proportion of consumption of the material, as much of a raw material and the waste that we produce, and as much of the kind of negativity, or if at all we can salvage the world. As architects, we're triply responsible. What we build, we are first altering the landscape forever. Second, we are guzzler of the energy, 42% of that. And third, as you say, we can be pollutant. And so we have to be responsible. And that's why humility rhymes with sustainability. Look at this. We think that technology is an answer, but I would say first step first. There's no denial to technology. But look at this. What you could do with just 1 meter awning over a window is more far effective than having extra tinted, double glazed, and sort of solar sensitive, glazing. So these are, this particular left-hand side building is south facing in Ahmedabad, and it actually has recorded 3-degree warmer temperature on the footpath opposite this building because it throws glare back. So not only inside what might be happening, but outside is also it is detrimentally. What were the traditional wisdom for that? Thick was both for insulation of cold or hot climate, multi-tiered roof. So you have to evacuate the heat out, external use of spaces. So as much that you don't have to overbuild, you could always use the outdoors in a right time. Jali, one of the most beautiful fenestration typology, that culturally one-way privacy. Queen could know what's going on outside. Nobody saw what queens look like. It gives you venturi effect, the kind of velocity of air increases if it passes by a small aperture. Bernoulli, and it's warm, same your breath is cool. So it micropools like the compressor that it goes from it compresses air and releases from a small hole and it makes it cool. And of course the aesthetic. So this is how Mr. Baker. So again, traditional element applied in a contemporary kind of cycle and made it into in fact functional and aesthetic that we all know as architecture. Three-part window. Traditionally, you had top for ventilator, middle for the gossip and view, and the lower one for the cool air. And like Hali, you could permute and combine. Today, you get down into the Bangalore, the pilot says 24-degree outside, and yet in a hotel with a fixed glazing, you have to run an AC to get inside 24. So using AC is not a crime, but when outside is 24, you running an AC to run interior temperature to be around 24, that's crime. Like, in India, we need Ray-Bans in summer. We need to diffuse light. As against if in the afternoon, who gave us the liberty to have doubly loaded corridor in the institute or in the hotel? That May afternoon, you have to run a light to get it illuminated. This is, again, talking about probably answering these. That this is today Ahmedabad. It's been given UNESCO recognition, but it is 6th century old city where festivities are celebrated with more fervor than the previous generation. So it's not a burden of continuing the legacy. Naturally has been part of the routine of the place. Everybody's invited very soon, 14 January, if you like. And look at this, that it's not obsolete. 2.6 FSI on a plot was in 4 or 5-story building, and that worked without air conditioning, even now with temperature rise in all over the globe. Because of the wisdom that it had shared long walls, it had internal courtyard, and it had multiple floors. So daytime you could be downstairs, nighttime you could be upstairs. So you adapted, and with the kind of fenestration that I talked about. So this one has character. This one, look at this. Buildings vertically project out. So the sun rain in the critical time overhead, the entire facade is in the shade. And when it goes low, the next building starts sheltering. So this is how, through simple built-up decision, it was able to achieve a good urban form, an identity to itself, the kind of density that we're talking about, which is very superior urban densities, multiple use of space, socializing by default, the streets becoming outdoor open spaces all through the day till evening, courtyard becoming the place for not only visual connect between floors, but also evacuating the hot air out, water harvested. Each house had a taka as a water system, and it was good enough for entire year's cooking and drinking needs. And look at this, like IKEA kit of parts, or like the food that I was talking about. Each house is unique by permutation and combination of crafts oriented mass production that you could mix and match units, and in your house So there was identity and yet there was no parity. So that's fantastic lesson of urban design that we had. And answering further to that, old city of Jaipur has higher density than any high rises that you see. It was a mixed use development, shop below, institute above with a terrace, and then residences. They are connected kind of arcaded streets for shelter, and yet unique that there is commonality at one end of one urban character or form, and yet each house has a different window type, so there is identity within conformity, and they could still work without an air conditioner. So if we learn from that, this is an imported something, good, bad, ugly, I'll leave it to anyone, but it's not that this has stopped functioning, therefore you need to look another side. It can be your choice, but not a compulsion. Internal courtyard, and that's beautiful that it can never be multiple used. And once again, is the idea of, again, the common sense, when you say local food, my naive interpretation, warmer the place, little more spicier the palate, so that when you perspire, you have the micro cooling by your body perspiration, and it gives you comfort. And same thing about the swing, that in a warm place you have the swing, so what kind of with electrical energy you lose the. So that's the kind of connect of being part of the place's resolution where there was no electricity and it had found answers for its own. But just to run through that, how possibly some of these get applied at different scales of design. So it's not just romanticizing the past, but probably implementing. So first is refuse what you don't need. This is what we have done for an industrial slum without a courtyard, back to back and interconnected houses, where last rooms are going to be pitch dark. So we came up with some of these answers to illuminate, which was easy possible through the roof, but this would not ventilate. So eventually we did this, what we call Ujasi, who won the United Nations Habitat Citation for that, the last three. And you can see with natural light, now it illuminates. You don't have to run a bulb for daytime use and neither the fan. And what is the impact of that? That because of extended hours of work, because of the good illumination in every room, minimum of 1,500 rupee increase in a daily production, which is indoor in the house. And minimum of 250 rupees savings in the electricity bill per month per house. So that's the kind of value addition it could bring with a very, very small design installation. I would not even say okay. Then reuse. This was a defunct sanitation park and we turned it into a public space, and in fact to change that mindset. So once again, connecting it to people in India, every time you say toilet, and this is our very natural reflex. So to change that mindset, this is called Pakhana Pe Khana. It's at Gandhi Ashram, and now we put it at 5 different places. Where you can still have your choices of the favorite 6 you like, and it reminds us of everything that you see in the morning in your place. And this is the 5th version that we have come up with of the same idea. Again, you're welcome when you come to Ahmedabad. I think MIT students from Manipal are going to be visiting that tomorrow. Again, reuse. This is Corbusiers building, should have been a modern heritage. This is how it's been abused, and we turned it into a permanent city museum. So it's also continuing the legacy, the cultural kind of heritage of the place, and it's now a place maintained and kept for everybody. So not only building is restored, but it's also showcasing uniqueness of the culture, craft, art, architecture of the city. Same thing we did for Corbusier's building. Again, this is talking about Corbusier. Ahmedabad is one of the 4 buildings by him, and we designed this reduce. This is interior. So from installation, re-adapting the place to creating new interior, even in the given kind of constraint. How can we do that? This one is the emergence of international wall. And this one's, again, common sense principle of natural palette of material, no, unduly having to use light in the daytime to microclimate, etc. And this could actually make 50% reduction in energy use by using natural light and ventilation.
And again, this was the fourth or fifth extension of the same idea to their own expansion. This is now residence, and this is a rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local material, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of material, water harvesting, vegetation, masking, and this is a rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of natural finish, local materials, least maintenance, microclimate through land, water, vegetation, natural palette of materials, water harvesting, modern house, vegetation, using the same masses, and this is a simple rich person's house, but again, simple principles of became a resort. It is all recycled from demolished places. Even multiple use of space, the same space in the morning in the middle of slum, one of the largest slum of Ahmedabad. It's a meditation space, afternoon. It's a vocational training to the young ladies. As I said, daytime crash and a social place for whole community to come together. This is a larger institute. Again, the students migrate Islam around the land. Again, a local adjustment for cut and fill of the soil, courtyard to give you outdoor spaces, you don't overbuild. Same common sense principles here. 2.2 million 22 lakh liter of water harvesting. No drop of water goes out to multiple means. Recycling of the wastewater through root zone system as well as the kind of biogas. Insulated ferrocement roof vault. The cavity wall construction, multiple use of space over time. There's no space which can hold more than 150 people, but we have 200 people. Paresh Rawal's play to 2,000 people when Dr. Kalam inaugurated this place. So common sense use of projecting profile, sunken northeast versus raised southwest, living spaces in the northeast, sleeping places in the southwest, flooded with inspiring messages, information, involvement, and inspiration are the three basic demands. Edible landscape, and so on and so forth. This dugout spaces rose our level without having to import any soil, and yet tradition range of continuing that traditional craft integrated into that. This natural holding pond which collects entire town. And finally, even the settlement. So each scale from a small installation to interiors to standalone to residence to standalone building to the institute of different scales to housing. Before I come to the Bhuj one that Dr. Madhuram explained, this is also I was a junior part of this project, Aranya Low Cost Housing. The point was that you can be close to the lifestyle of the people either by involving them or even studying them. So he's talking about research and whatnot. This is one example in a brownfield site that you have 86 hectare. Look at the translation of qualitative changes. That's all. Quantitatively, left and the right extreme sides are exactly the same. But having studied some of these settlements earlier through research, there was certain understanding about what kind of spaces succeed. And you saw some of the slides also, that despite provision, it may not work. So same density, same number of people. In fact, to even disbelief of the World Bank that partly funded, right-hand side was cheaper than the left-hand side. So that's how it has been already occupied. Typical walking distance for amenities, segregation of vehicular and pedestrian. Inwardly, you come to the institute as multiple use spaces of the open spaces, hierarchy of open spaces, diagonally cutting green as a pedestrian access, then the kind of informal shopping or whatever, milk booth, etc. In proximity, the residence area could come out into streets or cul-de-sacs, so safe and yet socially engaging. You can have these kind of activities there. So hierarchy of space, using the same amount of open space, but rather than one space block. And diversity from a backyard to front yard to between four houses. And this is how even north-south orientation, etc. So cheaper, but better. And same feet of parts idea, same square foot and the footprint on the ground, but 72 demonstration house, each unique with the feet of part. How much you can build, use 4 types of stair, multiple projections at different levels, different jali or different type of rating and different penetration and color. And you could come up with each house unique. And now people occupying, they make it further unique to them. And yet together, it's not an eclectic Milan. There's a cross mixing of economic groups. So there's cross subsidized. So people don't pay for the pavement and other things. This you can see every house has cultural connotations, religious connotations, expressions of their own self. And you can see two economic groups could still stay together. and enjoy the same facilities that they have. Even from inside, it's flexible enough. And this is the proof of their sense of belonging to the place which has been given by lottery, you know. And finally, the earthquake housing, we did 18 villages, and we also got the United Nations citation for that habitat award. And you see the people living in the extreme slum and extreme weather condition, but still they had self-esteem, and they created their own architecture where culture, craft, and architecture cannot be separated. It was so intertwined. And this is what was also the lesson of the traditional wisdom. Same place, same impact. You can see that Virata gave way, but this so-called kacha earth construction stood against that, and it was not a romance. You can see scientific reasons of all those 7 9. We won't dwell on that, which is what made it stand. And you can say that was a fluke. It was fluke one, fluke two, fluke three, many flukes to be flukes, you know. And it is not that they were smart, but like Ahmedabad engineers never envisaged the earthquake, and that's why they went wrong, or they got cornered, the builders. You know. Here, every generation told the next generation that we are succumbing to this kind of forces, so they would have taken care of that. So we did it in a participatory way. Literally, to my right is the sponsor, to my left is the villager, and I've sustained my points but not the head. Uh, we created this participatory kit. We allowed everyone to come and put, so left hand side, we paid when we presented this organic village plan, and they say, sorry, you bumped the classes. But then to the right, then we said that, okay, you put your, who is your neighbor, where you want to be. And this is how it came about. Our ego was hurt. So we said that you want linear cluster, but what about Angan for your daughter's wedding and Garba? So they said, okay, some classes you attended, we'll buy that. So likewise, you know, then we were from Ahmedabad, so we were very confused. This itni sari jagah hai, hमें इतना plot मिल रहा है, you know. So we actually pegged, because model we took there, that will give you an orientation idea, but not the scale idea. So one plot was pegged with 4 corner stakes over there, and once they saw that, then they said that, okay, Ahmedabad se aaye, but Narmada ka pani abhi chal raha hai, तो चलेगा हमें, you know. So that generated a sense of belonging. Now there was a small depression over there. We took that site and we took that same play with the same people who know very well how to do with this material. There is a whole science and engineering about it, which I don't know, but they know. And 10 youth of the community did with the manual press rent 3,000 block every day using combination of this. They built their own house, so they would do the best and as they want. Youngest of the family participated, learning from the wisdom of the oldest. So this know-how continues for 2 generations to come. Like this 12-year-old boy knows how to do this complicated group, and I don't know if it's the same person or not, but we have engaged them in several other new buildings like resort or whatnot, and their craft. This has become an additional resource for their income also. And maybe the same person built some new buildings for us. And look at this. In 2.5 months, this whole thing was ready. Because rather than one agency doing 1,000 houses with 1,000 people do one house each, which would be better. And this was, with this interior, 75 rupees a square foot, which was 1/5 of the stipulated cost by the government that time. 350 was their benchmark. This was 75 rupees. And today, Mr. Bachchan invites you with our ad and the brand ambassador to come to the Sharadotsav that's going on there, where these are the houses we take you to. It's become a homestay for them. And mind you, when we started, the same people said, we want Sisoti housing and vertical concrete apartment as aspiration. And today, they're actually giving you a homestay with food and stay for 800 rupees a night. And we can, this is where the craft is continued, their architecture is continued, that's where their unique expressions have culturally continued, and yet intermediate technology, smokeless stuff, so they don't have to involve smoke while cooking inside. And even this sound like a joke, but at least decentralized way of generating light and energy from where soil was dredged as a clay strata
This is a picture of the 3 inch of rainfall that first monsoon in August. This happened in January, and they have a water reservoir. Because of that, without anybody saying, they started agriculture. This just enjoying their house. You can see that in the village, and with that, culture flourishes. And because of that citation, 10 years later, United Nations was coming up with a book on disaster response case studies. And after 10 years, they were asked to revisit, even if there were mistakes, to document that. So this and some of these are even more recent pictures. So as it continued, in fact, those who wanted concrete apartments, they continued to build the similar ones further. And as you see, craft, culture, architecture, and tradition modernity is not an antithesis. It can go hand in hand without being a bipolar kind of a notion that we create in ourselves. Okay, I'm checking this regularly. The last one, I stopped at 2 minute video. This is even to say the memorial that we did for Cadila Pharma. Just 5 elements: punch, wood, and the wood space making is done through that. The water that we would see in the waste from the pharmacy industry is thing. This was a memorial for the founder of pharma industry in Gujarat and eventually for India. And just the video, if you have a sound, it's just a music. But from nothing, this is whole has been created. Yes, we were the Jaipur last year's stone architecture for this. It's all natural palette of stone. It's just land, water, vegetation, and building is very subdued. Only that one is the kind of exhibition area, which also you can walk over from where the picture gets taken. This is the food-inspired meditation area where there is a Akhand Jyot where he has been cremated at the same point. This path itself tells you the story of his life with embedded thing on that. Water is a flowing element. This is Bhagavad Gita's 87 slokes representing 80 years of his life. And these all both hand carved and all. These are also the sculptors from Jaipur, who is from Mohapatra, from Bhubaneswar. The artistry, the bronze just casting. So even one element, and like temple yourself a military. And this is a recreational journey. Outside is a jungle, then a manicured landscape, and then the man-made that represents him with that geometric expression of a Sri Yantra. So this is the second ring, which is partly kind of manicured. And so landscape, and this is all experiential. You can spend 2 days there, you can spend 2 hours minimum there. And you're welcome to visit this. We've in fact done an extension with now the wife of the founder not being there. And that is Atil. Actually, it's a replica of 84 temples, 1 to 8 scale. Even for architects, it's a single journey to give the exposure of what. So this is about incarnations and the meaning of that. So it's not just the history, but meaning, what it represents. The idea of evolution, the idea of and open air theaters. You don't have to build. You can use the climate, and that external entire jungle has been created. These are 3-year-old pictures. It's been further intensified. This is not a drone view, not a simulation. And so, in short, nature can be a great space maker. You don't have to so build minimum and yet create experientially engaging spaces that informs, involves, and inspires. I'll just conclude with this passage for the younger friends here. Glamour and beauty both can catch attention, but one is applique and one is integral, one is temporal like a fashion, one is timeless. So this is a grandson asking grandpa, how old are you? And grandpa replies, son, I was born before television, penicillin, polio shots, frozen food, Xerox, contact lenses, frisbees, credit card, laser beam, ballpoint, pens, pantyhose, air conditioner, dishwashers, and men haven't yet walked onto the moon. Your grandmother and I got married first and then lived together. Every family had a father and a mother. We were before computer dating, dual carriers, daycare centers, and group therapy. Our lives were governed by 10 commandments, good judgment, and common sense. Serving your country was a privilege, and living in the country was even bigger pride. We thought fast food was what people ate during the fasting days. We never heard of FM radios, tape decks, CDs, electric typewriters, yogurts, or guys wearing earrings. We listen to the news of the president's speeches on our radios. Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and instant coffee were unheard of. In my day, Coke was a cold drink, pot was something your mother cooked in, rock music was grandmother's lullaby, aides were helpers in principal's office, cheap meant a piece of wood, hardware was found in a hardware store, and software wasn't even a word. We were the last generation to actually believe that lady needed a husband to have a baby. No wonder people call us old and confused and say there is a generation gap. And how old do you think I am? Maybe the last 10 students would think, my God, what a miserable day, no pizza, no instant coffee, maybe primitive men rubbing the stone to ignite the fire, dinosaur time. This is 70 years old. And don't think as human species we have changed so much. We are exactly the same 100 years later. What has changed is the instrument in our hand. And we boast by technology, as I say, that save enough for I-17, but it will be all obsolete by the time you start flaunting it to your girlfriend. So as human species, things have not changed. What has changed is technology. Don't swear by that because at a blink of eye that would change. Our generation has seen from croquis to a ballpoint to rapidograph to computer, whatever version to now. So we know the technical technology changing more than this generation. What has really changed? We used to do routine and we used to exercise. Now you have to pay to the gym to do the exercise, exactly the same. Your grandmother would really pity you for being a beggar and not being able to afford a gym. But now it's fashionable. It's a good fashion, like this. There was a time you had to push your kid in to go and study. Now you have to really throw him out to go and play. Yes, what changes definitely is fashion. Sometimes I'm very fashionable. You used to chain a dog. Now we chain ourselves where there's a charger. Yes, a technology that could connect the whole world together on a dining table. And now a new technology that even on a dining table we have each different space. Technology is a tool, very useful, but let's understand it's a tool. Human and humane consideration are the first, and in India, I think nobody can beat us with this regard. We had our own WhatsApp, our own CCTVs, our own survey. So we can definitely do wonders with design. Empowered through design, the goal has to be to improve the quality of life, but we need to have a paradigm shift. Rather than giving Gandhian currency the value, we might want to make Gandhian value itself the currency. With the kind of accumulated wisdom inspired from yesterday and yet aspire for tomorrow. Welcome to traverse in the immensity of time and space, notion and reality. Thank you for your patience.
We are open for a quick question and answer round. Is
Hello. Thank you, sir, for a wonderful lecture. It's always a pleasure to listen to you, and both sessions are friends for me. So one common line is we draw in both sessions, which is like I can understand for my understanding. We have a glorious past and traditions and everything which we need to take ahead in future also. They need to be, as you said, but that need to be seen in the future, in the future. My question is one small question: like how what is the exact, an idea? What is happening? Why it is not getting ahead? Is it organization or scalability or what else? And for younger generations like Gen Z, how to deal with them also to understand, make them understand its value and actually make it workable. Because in our tradition, as now we talk about availability, we already have low customers now, so to Georgia Vanchi, the hotel means everyone wants whatever they should get some management. So what we have already, Now we are looking in other perspectives like UN, the text of UN and all, like livability and its measurability and all. That is fine. But with that we already have. Now scalability and urbanization are the culprit of what exactly? That is the thing.
First of all, to blanketly say that everything is going in one direction is not wrong. We're looking and documenting or observing only that. Today, you go to south of India and look at the routine of Mr. Nair. Mr. Nair is IIT graduate, working in a multinational, but he has a tripod here with the ash. He works in a multinational, speaks in English in a globally kind of MNC in accented English. He comes back. His wife has a rice-based rangoli in front of his agraharam. He wears the moon. He waits for the temple's aarti on the threshold, goes inside, has a heap of rice as a meal, and then watches Rajinikanth film. Where is the contradiction? Okay. So it is not that things have changed for this generation or next. It's certain examples which unfortunately has been made to be popular to say that this is the lifestyle and this is what you must live in. Ahmedabad wants to be Dubai and Singapore, and that's the hype. Gujarati family are shy of saying that Gujarati mein baat nahi karte. They all want to put their kids into English medium. और फिर condition is that कि गुजराती आती नहीं और अंग्रेजी खाती नहीं. So you're neither places. You can't speak one correct sentence in English and yet. So point is that one is the fad, and that being perpetuated to say that I've come a client and says कि हम तो village से आते हैं आप बताओ कि कैसे रहना चाहिए. And I've designed sitting on a ground kind of a dining facilities to even not having to have a commode instead of typical Indian things. Right now we're designing one where we've been asked to put that or we're wanting to put that, but the tender says you don't have this. So what I'm trying to say, one is the fad and the hype. Second is us to blame that what denominator that we took. In the name of modernity, we have misplaced ourselves. You go to Europe and professor would come to receive you, but with a bicycle. They'll use public transport. German house will have 1.5 toilet for the entire family. While in USA, you would take car for 30 miles across. You would have 5 bathrooms for 4-bedroom house because one is puff powder room. But in India, we have 6 toilets for 4-bedroom house, one for powder room and one for the workers or the paid servants. Okay, so I think we've picked up a wrong model. And when I say this Indian example, let's take international example for the young people because they think India की बात करें फिर भी ये पुराना आदमी है, बाल भी घिसते हैं इसके उल्टे डलते. But take the youngest beautiful girl from Spain, let's say Blanca, Miss Blanca, and how do you picture her? She's most fashionable, mini skirt, and a loved one, if at all you can manage her. Now look at her routine. She prepares only tortilla, the omelette, potato omelette in the morning. She goes to the most olden part of the city, which is Heritage Building, which is owned by multinational. She only continues to speak in Spanish. She has siesta routine even today in the afternoon. Weekend she goes to the family with the public transport. She doesn't own a car. She earns enough. And she celebrates Tamatino festival. Where has language, culture, tradition, or routine been affected? Maintaining it today in a global world and yet being as adaptable and fashionable for the time. So I think we have created this polarization, and therefore, whether it is language to whatever, you go to a conference in Kerala and you never find appam and stew in the menu. You'll always find same paneer sabji which they don't know how to make it,
and whatnot, over there. So it's that kind of a mindset that has continued. And unfortunately, as architects, we are to blame that we have not educated. Educated is a big word, but we have not taken that onus on being what is right. We have become a doctor who is happy giving you the injection to immediately or highest doses of, the kind of medicine to see कि अभी तो काम हो गया without effect, knowing the side effects.
Good evening, sir. I loved your presentation, by the way. My question was, I noticed the disaster resilient structures that were there, the circular one. It's and a similar theme was covered by Bharat sir, like with the gate. The question comes, like, as an architecture student right now, a lot of the recurring themes in competitions are the increasing movement of people from rural to urban areas and the emphasis on verticality. So when we covered how small scale houses and residential homes can be disaster resilient, another aspect that the briefs and the competition briefs signify, like the structure that we build in the urban city needs to reflect Indian values and roots. So, as a third year student, how do I know how to balance making a building like preserving its traditional roots and also keeping in mind the futuristic project progression in urban cities?
Thank you. This is FAQ somewhere. 13th is the answer I'm giving. I'm glad you asked that. First of all, don't be under pity or illusion how to balance. Doctor doesn't go and balancing. As I said, if there's no medicine required, you would say you're absolutely fine. If you still think there is condition why that will give a placebo pill, my argument is this, that what says, I showed you that urban density of 2.6 FSI is higher than the 11-story apartment we built in 2000 in Ahmedabad, which is 1.8 FSI. So first of all, it is wrong to assume that these solutions are not for urban context. In fact, I'm probably romanticizing going all the way to the first civilization and medieval ages, both built as compactly. That if you look at the human density or wind farm density for the given area, one, for keeping the agricultural land available for resources. So in the first civilization, we built compactly. There was enough land. Why did we not splurge? But there was this wisdom. Also, all four around the warm climate. So climatically, it was responsive. Keeping the infrastructure and facility. Same thing continued in Middle Ages, where because of defense, we built within the least parameter that was possible and therefore built as compactly. It was only when the automobile got invented and the cannonball, because of which you could not defend yourself within the bounds of the wall, we broke that. And that's where came Garden City. But the worst was the automobile exit where we got the suburbs. Okay. So to think that earlier examples where anti-urban is the first premise that is not founded in the right research and statistics. That's number one. Now, the second one is that therefore, now Singapore, again, there's something called mid-rise. So it's not that from a yurt of a Mongolian tent suddenly to 40-story residence. Work environment is different, residential is there. Americans are smart. They have vertical downtowns for work, but they live in a very low-rise suburb, when it comes to living. So I think you must know what typology works where. And this is also chicken and the egg thing. Our cities have sprawled and yet we have gone vertical. What have we achieved? Have we been able to contain like the medieval town within certain bounds? Then we could say that, okay, we need to do this. So what I mean is that at certain threshold, there is no compulsion of a particular typology. It could well be the choice. But if you have that choice, now my question is not to high rise per se, but in which high rise? Say, if I build on the ground, I am subjected to compulsory side margin, front margin, XYZ setbacks. Is it applying to my ninth floor apartment? I don't even have balcony. While on ninth floor, my extension outdoors is very needed. So why is that apartment house considered complete without covered or open or semi-covered space? Why should there not be mandatory requirement of me having to have certain amount of 3% of open space per bit form. So if we pick up a typology, have we understood the limitations set by that? And therefore, so what I'm saying is it's not replicating typology. This is a second take on that question. Can I not learn that our way of life requires culturally and climatically to be able to use outdoors? Our way of life is on mutual interdependence, and therefore interactivity with the neighbor has to be of a prime value. So therefore, have my designs, even on the 19th floor, been able to provide me with that? And that's where if that typology gave me three terraces, one for utility, one for entertaining guests, and one for the family, I would have been happy. If that gave me a reason to interact. So we have shopping mall, which understands that if you don't make people see at a glance what is on the third floor in Big Bazaar, whatnot, the shop would not do well. Why is that not available in a high rise where there are quadruples with atrium in every four floors? So I can even look down on the third floor. That girl who is just about to leave, and I decide to follow her, or the friend, just let's play cricket. So what I'm saying is that when you say that picking up on those ethos is not replicated, but definitely understanding who we are culturally, socially, and as kind of aspirationally. And if that is meant with that any typology, that is the one that as a third year student we should be looking at, not throw baby with the basket. Just same footprint 1 to 19 is not right. Being on the 13th floor has its own dynamics, and what we lose by being not on the ground is what needs to be substituted. So be bold enough and honest enough to respond to that. And that would be wonderful place. I hope myself in your state.
Thank you so much, sir, for having us realize that we must understand the plurality of architecture that we in architecture and interior design that already exists in India. So, requesting Professor Dr. Kalyan Kumar Mukherjee, sir, to kindly present the memento to architect Yatin Pandyan. Both the speakers today highlighted on the primary understanding our identity as Indians, the history that we have, the memory we have, and the plurality of architecture we have right in front of us. With this note, I would like to inform the participants and the student volunteers they are requested to proceed for lunch at the first floor of Old Mess Food Court. And we shall be continuing with the technical sessions post lunch at 2 p.m. 2:30 p.m. across all the scheduled venues in the admin block. Thank you so much. Wouldn't have been possible without the support of faculty members and students of SAND and Interior Design Department. Thank you.
मेरे को नहीं पता
Yeah.